If you ever get the deer in headlights look from a patient or parent, right? Disc is your solution.
Yeah. Or disc is where you screwed up.
Exactly.
No doubt. This is Designing Leaders, the podcast where simplicity meets leadership. I'm your coach, Desi Maynor, your guide on this journey towards effective and efficient leadership. Here we unite theory and practice, bringing you actionable insights from the front lines of leadership. From boardrooms to sales floors, we're breaking down silos and fostering teamwork. Every episode is a new step towards absolute accountability and clear communication. I'm your host, Desi Maynor, and let's dig in. What's up, everybody? Desi here with Designing Leaders, and we have, I think, a celebrity in the house today. One in Dr. Nicole Wax of Wax Orthodontics, founder, lead doctor, all of the great things. Built it in the small little town, our town.
Yeah, true.
Our town of Linden, Michigan, and is in the top echelon of the industry throughout the nation. And we are just so honored to have you on and super excited to talk about this.
I'm excited to have the awesome consulting firm of Maynor Leadership in our town, Linden. I mean, how lucky am I?
Let's go. So today we want to talk about something that is, not new to you. You've used this, but it's new to a lot of the orthodontic industry, which is disc. Right? So people are probably wondering, what the heck is disc? Why is it important? What does that mean? What does it have to do with teeth? And basically what disc is, it's a communication model, right? It's what we call the universal language of behavior. And it's how we're communicating to every human, essentially. And I always make the joke, some dogs it also applies to. But the key here that we want to hone in on today is how does it apply to the orthodontic industry. So why don't we let's give them a little intro to disc. So talk about what's been your disc journey, right? And I know I've played a little bit of a role in that, but as far as the orthodontic piece, what have you tried? What have you done so far? How has that worked? Just give us a little intro to that.
Well, you have been more than a little part of my disc journey. You introduced me to it. We have conversation all the time about it because as soon as I started learning about disc and how it can really change your relationships with people, how you understand people, how they understand you, it changed my world and I became really excited about it. So if you've ever interacted with me at an orthodontic conference or in any sort of conversation, I usually bring up disc. What's your disc?
Yeah.
Do you know, I'm a D. What are you?
Yeah.
Because I think it's fun to talk about. So disc has really changed how I view people, how I approach conversation, how I approach business, leadership, sales, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So it's a huge part of my life now.
So just like a new filter that has been built in and just kind of how you see in people.
Yeah.
How you look at their behavior, their communication, their leadership, their sales, all of the above. It's like this just kind of enters the equation in all scenarios. Give us just a little tidbit of where's the practice now? How are you guys doing? What's the focus? What's your vision moving forward? That kind of thing for people that, lots of the orthos do know you. But for somebody that might not know, where are you guys currently at? What are you focused on? What are you working on? That kind of thing.
So in our practice, I've always been interested and excited about marketing, sales, and customer experience. That has been the driver in our practice from day one because it's just core to who I am, right? Yeah. How we treat people, their experience, and all of that. So right now, because we're always focused on that, how we incorporate disc with that, right? We have lots of team trainings. I think it's important that our team understand disc and in particular how we can communicate with our patients to elevate their experience, right? Yeah. And even assessing situations where an experience wasn't so great, how can we utilize disc to understand how we could have made that better, right?
Absolutely.
So projects that we're working on right now, we are working on revamping our staff room, our break room, our lunch room, whatever you want to call it, right? Where we have our team's disc profile and more details about each team member because when you grow, right, we've grown so much with our team and with our practice in general, but we need to understand each other. Yeah. We got a lot of work to do, a lot of important work to do. And the better we can understand each other, the better we're going to be able to work through everything that we have to do, the better we can serve our patients, right? So we're working on kind of putting up all this disc information in our break room to deeper understand each other.
The disc wall.
Love it.
For those of you that may not fully understand what that is, it's basically like a poster, right? With each person's picture on it. Each person has like their own little 8x11 picture poster, and then it'll be color coded with their disc color. So disc stands for dominant, influence, steady, and conscientious, right? So that's each type. And D is red, I is yellow, S is green, and C is blue. So they'll all be color coded, and then they'll have like some do's and do nots. So with our disc assessment, there's a section in there in the results report that says, if you're communicating with Desi, do this. And there's a, couple, 3 bullet points. If you're communicating with Nicole, don't do this, and a couple bullet points there. So what we do is we actually let them choose which bullet points resonate with them the most. And then those are the ones we put up there, right? So that's a good way to understand really quickly someone's primary personality, and then how to communicate better with them in like a real quick snapshot of that too. And then we have some fun with that, and we change it around, right? Like every 6 weeks we'll change it up. So it's not just a picture on the wall anymore. It's like something we talk about and everything, but that's that disc wall. And that's pretty fun. You'll really like that too, because you'll be thinking about something or your personnel or whatever, and you can just turn and look at it. And that's really beneficial tool to have. But I liked what you started to talk about. You started to talk about the patient experience, right? I want to hit on the team experience, right? The interdepartmental communication and the culture building that is, just as important, right? With that. And I think that the way that you're using that, and bringing them together and collaborating on it and talking about it. And like everybody in the office is just talking DISC. Right? Like, I wonder if were they this? What color were they? Was that the D? Was that SC type of a deal? That is what I have found to be the most successful facilitation and sustainability of disc, is when people just like, they're like, what should we do? Like, what's the secret ninja hack? And I'm like, talk about it.
Yeah.
Like it's nothing fancy. It's just we get people talking about it. Before you know it, everyone has a platform in the same language. It's literally a new language to talk about all the things that we were already talking about, but now we just have the words to be able to articulate our successes, our problems, with our patients, our doctors, all those types of things. It's like we have words now to go with it, which makes it much easier. Let's hit on the leadership aspect of disc, right? So when we're looking at leaders, and maybe we're growing a practice manager, a doctor, and a front office manager, a TC manager, whatever it may be, what are some of the things that you're looking for? And what have you found to be beneficial for your team as far as the disc style in leadership?
So a lot of times when, leadership is all about guiding and influencing our team. Mm-hmm. That's really what being a leader is, right? Guiding and influencing our team. So a lot of times, whether you're a leader or you're not a leader, right? You're having a conversation with somebody about how what needs to get done or how something should look. And you think everyone's on the same page. Yeah. And then time goes by, and then the next week comes and you sit down and how's that going? And it went in a complete different direction than what you were understanding in that conversation, right? And a lot of times that comes down to perception, right? We thought they understood, but they perceived the information in a different way, right? And I think you can really utilize DISC when you're having these conversations to make sure the message isn't like lost in translation, right? Yeah. I almost feel like as a visual, DISC is a filter. So when I'm talking, we're both D's, right? So the information is going to flow from my voice to your ears, like straight path. Nothing's going to interrupt that message, right? Yeah. But if I'm talking to an I, an S, or a C, somebody with a different communication style or personality than mine, what's going to happen is going to go through the screen, the disc screen, and then get all right, like the wavelength is going to change. The wavelength of what I'm saying and those words are going to change as they enter their ear, right? So if I know what that filter is going to do to my message, because I know the disc, I can alter how I'm speaking so that the other personality understands it better.
Yeah.
So I want to give real examples of this because this is how I love to learn, right? When I'm listening to podcasts, I'm like, I want real examples. How can I take this into my practice? So like I mentioned, I'm a D, and if you're listening to this podcast or first learning it or whatnot, have the disc personalities ready to go. So, okay, what is D again? Right. I think that's important when you're first learning.
I think your specific one is Challenger DC, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. So like for anyone, if you haven't taken the test, go take the test, mainleadership.com. You can get a test. And what you'll have is you'll have an indicator, and then you'll have 1 to 3 letters. Right. So we happen to be the exact same of Challenger DC. Right. But my wife she's a Precisionist CS. There's Peacemaker SCs. There's 41 different options actually the types of personalities that you could be.
And I think in the beginning stages, because you're farther advanced in your disc understanding than me, right? You're my teacher, I'm the student, yet I've really taken all this information and run with it because I think it's really important and it's helped me tremendously in my practice. But in the beginning, I think at least understanding the 4 and your main thing is a good start. It really is a good start.
Maybe should we go there just for a minute, maybe?
Sure.
Right. So D, dominant. Okay. So that's going to be, you're going to be direct. You're going to be results focused. You're going to be fast paced and task oriented. Really, that's probably as much as you need to know right there.
Yep.
D, dominant, you're fast paced. You're task oriented, and you want results.
That's it. Right.
The I is going to be optimistic, encouraging. The I is going to also be fast paced, but their focus is going to be people.
Social.
Yeah. You got it. Then the S is going to be more steady paced, more people focused, and they're going to be really loyal, great at teamwork, good at follow through. And that's the vast majority of your population. You're going to get, anywhere 60 to 70% of your population is going to be an S personality. The D personality was 3 to 5%. And the I personality is 11 to 20%, depending. And then the last one, that C personality, also steady paced, but they're going to be heavily focused on tasks, very logical, very detail oriented, very analytical, very rational, and that type of thing. So really that's your DISC and kind of how to identify someone really, really quickly. But let's go to this example with leadership, and we'll talk some practical stuff.
Right. So you can imagine those screens and how your message might be misunderstood as it's entering this other person's brain and all of that. So if you are aware of the personality differences, you can take that into account in how you communicate with them, right? So the S personality, that smooth and steady is how I describe the S, right? The complete opposite of the D on the chart.
Yeah, literally diagonal.
Yeah, the complete opposite. So for me, I know I'm a D, meaning I'm fast-paced, results-oriented, right? That's it. That's all we have to know for this. The S, slower-paced, and a little bit more people-focused versus task-focused or results-focused. So when I'm talking to an S on my team, and my financial coordinator was an S, okay? And what I learned, because I understood DISC and then I became, could better understand her. Yeah. What I learned is when we had to communicate, for example, when we needed to change things in our procedures or how we did things in the office, my style would be hey, this is a new way. You're good to go. All right. See you next week. Right.
Yeah.
That doesn't work for an S. An S will get all nervous. Okay, wait, what am I supposed to do? I'm changing this. Did I do something wrong? Yeah. Right, this is how an S might think. You're changing this. Is this personal? Well, she didn't ask me about my day. You know what I mean? Does she not like me? Right, so if you understand that, you can alter how you lead in those scenarios. So instead of me, hey, Susie, this is the change we need to make this week. Make sure you do it this way the next time you go about this chart, whatever. Let me know if you have any questions. Close the door. Instead of that, which is the D style, it's, hey, Susie, how was your day? How was your weekend? So see, I'm adding some people because I know she needs that social personal side of things. Oh, that's so great. I saw your Facebook picture. You had a fun weekend, whatever. So you kind of start with that. And then it's, hey, I want to alter how we're doing the collections process. So when is a good time that you and I can sit down to talk about that?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm kind of slowing it down. I'm giving her a heads up because, you know, a strong S is going to be uncomfortable with change. So you have to
reluctant.
Yeah. You have to kind of warm them up to it. Slow your approach.
Yeah.
You know, and then we'd schedule that later. And then we'd sit down. I would talk slower than I normally would in a meeting. So here I am changing my natural pace because I'm pretending I'm talking to Susie right now, who's an S personality. So this is how, at the most basic level, but probably the most impactful, you know, it's been the most impactful way that DISC has changed leadership. It's how we're communicating.
Yeah. I mean, how you have one-on-ones, how you lead change, all of those little mini conversations that happen it's all day long, right? At all levels of the practice. That's exactly where it's just a little tweak, you know, like it's not, and here's the thing is that it's not, you're still being authentic, but it is the leader's job to meet the needs of their team. And in that particular scenario, the need is just a different style of communication.
Exactly.
And it's like, so you're going to need to acclimate and to augment and to modify your pace and your priority and your approach and how you lead and really in how you communicate. I mean, leadership, 90% of leadership is communication, essentially. And so that's where that plays a role in every single one of those. And a really important thing, and I say this all the time, is like when you go to have that conversation, like you're not the most important person in that conversation, which is why you're modifying to meet their needs. And that's because the leader's usually like, yeah, but I need this changed. I need this done. And it's like, well, it's not going to get done without them.
Well, talk about being authentic, right? For me personally, there's two really important things or that I have high standards for in being a leader in my practice. Yeah. One is results, because I'm a D, makes sense, right? Yes. Like I like results. I like knowing what my goal is and achieving it and knowing where we are in that process, right?
It just feels good to do.
I like results. But you know what else is really important to me? That the people that work in my organization enjoy their work.
Yeah.
That's authentic to me. That doesn't matter what DISC you are. That has nothing to do with DISC, right? Yep. So, but that motivates me to understand DISC, because the better I can relate and understand people on my team, the better leader I can be for them, make it a more enjoyable process, which ultimately is going to deliver the results better that I like to see.
Yeah. And now building your practice to the point where it's at, you can't get those results that you want without your team.
I need my team.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's, we run into that all of the time, but they're not, but they're not. And it's like, but you're not if they don't.
Right. If they're not, what can I do to help them?
Exactly. Yeah. Let's go with one more example on that. And I have one for the TCs, right? So we work with lots of different TCs and using DISC in that consult, right? Whether, if treatment is appropriate, talking about braces, talking about Invisalign, talking about in braces, all the different types of things, right? So we look at it when our TCs are in the first part of that consult. They should be looking and they should be listening. They should be asking a question so that they can then identify who that patient and or maybe even more importantly, the parent, that what type of DISC they are. And then how can they change how that consult's going to go, how they're communicating. Because a C personality might need all of the pamphlets, all of the examples, all the data, all of the research. That D personality might just need to know that your teeth are going to be fixed in X months, right? Yeah. And that consult couldn't go completely different. Like a D consult is probably going to be much shorter than a C or an S consult. An I consult is probably going to be much more people oriented and focused on status and prestige and social acceptance and all of these types of things, versus the C personality who just wants to know exactly how you're going to do this. What's the process going to look like? Why do you think this is going to work? The C personality might also want to hear from the doctor a little bit more because of that quality is so important to them. So as a TC, right? Or maybe you have TCs, like it is so key that they understand human behavior and they understand communication and that they're customizing that. And really it's like, it's tone, it's inflection, it's pace, it's how they go about that. In certain practices, like there's one I'm thinking of is a CDDC type of treatment coordinator, right? And we've had to really work on her to tone it down a bit, slow it down, and really dig into the emotional problem of those patients. Like, how is that affecting how you feel? Oh, wow, I haven't felt confident in a long time. And all of a sudden, mom or dad hears that for the first time. It's like, oh, there it is. Well, what if we fixed that? Then how would that make you feel? That's harder for a CD personality to mine out of a person and to find. So that's a great example there, how we've had to get her to start to feel much more and more uncomfortable in asking those questions. But those are the things that that patient or parent really needs to hear to really make that informed decision about their kid or about themselves, to what route they want to go, how fast they want to do it, all these different types of things. So that's another really core example, I think, in a completely different department of the practice.
I think DISC is really, it's really about understanding how to best communicate with people, right? We know that. So imagine being at a party or a gathering and you're standing next to somebody and you're like, right, there's two ways that conversation can go. Wow, we had a lot to talk about. We really vibed, right?
Yeah.
Or, oh my gosh, I really wanted to chat with this person and get to know them, but I really was not getting anything out of them. Yeah. It was really tough, right? We've been in both of those different scenarios of conversations, right? So the same thing can happen in leadership. The same thing can happen in the TC room, right? In a consult. The same thing can happen with an active patient out in the clinic, right? So how you get around that is, if I kind of know, the more you know about somebody, the better you can find, common ground and have better conversation, right? So DISC is like the first step in getting to know more about this person so that you can have a more engaging conversation, right? Yeah. And especially with somebody that maybe you don't naturally have a lot of things in common. That's where DISC really, if you have a bunch of things in common, I mean, the conversation is going to flow. It's just going to be great, right? This is about talking with people that are different than you, which is the majority of people, right? Yep. And so we talked about in leadership how we can use that. And it's just like altering how you deliver information, how fast, the technique, right? All of that. So that everyone understands their job and can, create results that everyone wants to see in the most efficient and effective way, right?
Yeah, just serve the patient well.
And then in sales or the TC room or the consult room, right, it's about understanding that parent and patient, right? So that we can take them through the process in the way that they need to take that path. Because if we assume they're a social, outgoing person, the I, right, but they're not, we're going to be talking about their kids and their weekend and all these things and they're going to be thinking, you're wasting my time. Yep. That's an example, right?
Absolutely.
Or if we're assuming they're a detail-oriented person, and we're going over millimeters of crowding and overbite and let me show you the cephalometric x-ray and the panoramic x-ray and let me show you all these things, they're going to be thinking, you're wasting my time. I don't care about this. Yeah. Right. And if you think you're talking to a D and you're direct, you're right to the point, and you skip over the details and you skip over the social, you've lost that person. Right. So, and for an S, that smooth and steady person, if you give them all the options, you can have braces, Invisalign, clear lingual, right? Yeah. We could do elastics. We could do extraction. You've lost them. Yeah. So it's really important to be able to quickly identify who you're talking to so that you can meet them where they are. Yeah. And then for the active patient in the clinic, right?
Another one. Yeah. I had another example too. I was going with the front. Front
okay.
Desk,
I'll let you talk to the front because I didn't mention that yet.
So in the front office, right? So we got schedulers, of course. And then that's where all the patients are coming in for wait times and all these things, right? And so the front desk has the first and probably the biggest opportunity to get the initial read, right? The looking and listening, like I talked about, on that patient. They're going to know right away, what is the mood of that patient? Are they in a hurry? Are they running behind? Are they good to go? How's the kid looking if it's a kid? And then the biggest opportunity, I think, here is to be able to relay that information to the other people in the practice, right? To the clinical assistant, to the doctor, to the TC, whatever it may be. That is I think so key. I mean, even making notes on it, because you can learn a lot of DISC just by watching. and listening. Like, I mean, you don't even have to ask a direct question, just watch them interact.
In the clinic, the doctor can specifically utilize DISC in how they go over information at the chair side. So typically, if you're not aware, you're not thinking about DISC, you're not thinking about differences in patient and parent communication, you're going to pretty much have this routine of I go to the chair, I check the upper teeth, I check the lower teeth, I adjust my wire, I look at the x-ray, I look at the photo, whatever your routine is, right?
Yeah, it's going to be pretty scripted.
Because you've done it so many times, right? Well, now if you're factoring in what experience does my patient or parent prefer based on their DISC, your delivery at the chair is going to look a little different depending on the person that's in that chair. Right. So this can really be utilized in all departments.
And you're checking the same boxes, but you're just doing it in a different way.
Absolutely.
Right?
Nothing changes about your clinical care. You're still going to move the teeth the same way. Your treatment plan stays the exact same, but the experience of the patient and the parent on the other side is going to be completely transformed and better if you take into account their DISC personality.
And I would say even with that, depending on if you're asking questions, and the better you are at that DISC personality, the better your patient's going to open up, or that parent's going to open up, and you might learn something to improve the care that you maybe wouldn't have known if you were just going through your script, doing the thing, but you have you're building a better relationship with them.
Excellent point. So I think, instead of being self-centered, I'm going to, that sounds a little rough, right? Self-centered. Let me explain. You go to the chair, and if you're out of your own head, right? Let's say you're in your head. You're not considering who you're talking to. You're not considering their personality or their DISC profile, right? That's what I mean by self-centered. Again, probably a better word to use there. But you get into that chair. You're not considering that other person. You do exactly what you as the doctor, the orthodontist needs to do, and you exit, right? Very different experience for that patient than if you go in, consider what needs to be considered for that patient, right? You can better serve them if you better understand them and you better care about who they are and what their preferences are.
I mean, maybe the letter's already in the charts. There's a couple of notes. Maybe Bobby or Susie's at the soccer game, and they're an I personality. They really talk about people, or they're an S and they have really low confidence, right? So there's something that you can say about that. But all of this is, your team plays a role in all of this, and it's a big role. Because without them, you don't know that info, and then you can't even do that, and then you're just back to checking your boxes, right? And the patient experience isn't as impactful. And I mean, those types of patient experiences, those are the ones that they're going to go and tell people about.
That's how you go from a 4-star practice to a 5-star practice. You understand their DISC, right? And you deliver and communicate the way they need to hear things. So I'm imagining a patient that's a C.
Okay.
A C patient or a C parent, let's say. Okay. They like detail. If I go in and I just say, hey, Susie, hey, Mom, how was your weekend? Awesome. Her smile's looking great. We're going to get new wires in and see her in 8 weeks. That's kind of a typical spiel, right? If you do that with a C, they're going to leave that appointment feeling pretty unsatisfied. Because they're thinking, well, last time you told me I was a class 2, I heard the assistant say class 2 to the doctor. Is my class 2? What does that mean? What is it supposed to be? How far off am I, right? There's going to be a lot more question in their mind that you've now not given them the opportunity to ask because you didn't recognize that they're a C personality, meaning a detail-oriented person, likes all those, the analytical side of things. So understanding that and being mindful of that, you can deliver information that they're looking for. It doesn't change your treatment plan or the care you're, providing that patient. It's simply what you're communicating and what you're not communicating.
Yeah, and in that scenario, I mean, there's probably 15 things that are going through your head as the doctor. And in that scenario with the C parent, it would be literally just verbalizing the things that are going through your head. Oh yeah, that looks good. This looks good. That, and literally just saying all of those things. They're probably thinking, oh, okay, good, yeah, okay. And then how much value do you add in that? Really, even a quick, experience there that wouldn't have been there. Because you already thought of them. You were literally going through it in your head. And
it's
all you
nothing
had to do,
extra.
No.
And if it was an S or any other personality really type. you're going to keep all those thoughts in your head because they don't want to hear it.
Or you're just going to give them the why.
Or it's going to confuse them. Yeah, exactly.
Right? Just get, hey, here's why we're doing this. And then relate it back to like their feelings and their emotions or whatever it is that you found like in the consult even of their initial problem for coming in. When you can, it's like almost like a 360 approach with that. Cause it's like, it hits all the different departments, right, in a practice, and it's all honed in on that patient experience and the patient care, which is just, I mean, it's cool. They feel, let's go with that. Like, how does that make them feel?
It makes them feel like we know them intimately. You know what I mean? We're their best friends. We're their family. We've been with them, you know, for a long time, many years, right? Yep. That's how it makes them feel. Yeah. Because we're talking their language. And
I always say, like, you want to build a practice that no one ever wants to leave. Patients, team, all of the above. And that's how they feel understood. I mean, you know, when someone comes at you like, we're going to get you this result, we're going to do this. You know, you said this is what we're going to get you. This is how fast we're going to get to you. When that's talked about to me, I'm just like, you get me.
Yeah. Cause
you understand.
That's the D language right there.
That's that D language. But feeling understood and feeling like, you know, they're part of the family, like that is stuff that they will go tell other people about.
This is what we're talking about. We're talking about a new patient walking into your office, Desi. And they're handed a menu. Yep. Which kind of service would you like during your orthodontic experience with us? Circle D, I, S, or C. Okay. That's great. And it literally describes what they get in their package. You get whatever it might be, what that fits that personality. They circle it and we follow that menu. The service plan they picked. Yeah. Right. Now, this is an analogy. We don't actually do this, but yet we do.
Absolutely. That's what we're explaining.
Yeah, that's what we're explaining.
Right. And really from an internal perspective, I mean, that's really how you could build that experience and train the team on that. Right. Like, this is a D experience. This is the I. This is how this changes. This is how this is altered. Right. And then the whole team knows about it. And that's the perfect analogy. You want to create a scenario where it's literally like circle which letter, but we do that for them. Yep. Which is even better.
They're not everyone's coming in for steak and potatoes. Not everyone's coming in for a salad. Not everyone's coming in for a fruit bowl, right? Yep. What are they coming in for?
Yep. Yeah, each letter is going to be coming in for something different for sure. No doubt. I love it. That's so good. It's just so key. Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about what are some of the most common challenges that you see in communication, either with patients, parents, or within your team? And maybe we just dive around all three of those.
Some of the most common communication issues or challenges?
Obstacles, yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to think in examples, okay? Yeah. So I have, so the way our consultations go in our office, right? The TC is the first person that starts to kind of understand why this new patient is there. Yeah. Records are done already. TC comes talk to the doctor, right? So that the doctor can better understand why this patient is here, what they're looking for. And then the doctor will go in, have a conversation, and then TC takes them to the end, right? Yep. So it is challenging sometimes when you walk into a consultation room and you see a new patient and you think it's going to go one way, and you're totally derailed because that patient is asking you questions you weren't expecting or giving you maybe emotion that you weren't expecting. And you're like, whoa, okay, hold on. I got to back up here. Yeah. I'm clearly not delivering.
Reset. Yeah.
Yes, I got to reset here. So where DISC can be helpful is if your TC is trained in this, right? And they understand DISC and they can identify what kind of patient that is and their communication style. When they're talking to you, they're going to give you a heads up. Yeah. Hey, this parent is a C. She wants a lot of detail. So don't go in and just briefly go over everything. You're going to dive into all of the diagnosis and the specific treatment plan, right?
All the things.
Very different. Now, if I do that, or this parent is an S, right? So now I know I'm going to guide them through each section. Yeah, I'm going to guide them through that consultation differently than I would anyone else, right? For sure. So that's a common challenge where we use DISC to help us and help the patient,
so
right?
Like how the TC gets that info to you, the doctor.
Yep. And how the doctor uses it.
And also quickly.
Yes.
And then how the doctor uses that for sure.
Yeah.
And that's probably common even with really any department to any other department.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I'm even thinking like if you like pictures to TC, like there's an opportunity there. Front office to clinic, there's an opportunity there. That ball probably is a common ball to get dropped.
Yep.
Right, just because I forgot about that. Oh yeah, that was a thing. Or there's 100 patients in a day, and we're trying to do all the things. Yeah, okay, so that's good. So really, it's just that like daily morning huddle reminder. It's talking about it all the time. It's having the disc wall. It's making sure that we're following the checklist, and in our new patients, and the front desk is paying attention, and all those types of things to make sure that there's sustainability, right, and scalability. Honestly. With that scenario, that we're really focused on that patient experience, and disc playing a big role in that.
If you ever get the deer in headlights look from a patient or parent, right? Disc is your solution.
Yeah. Or disc is where you screwed up.
Exactly.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Yep. That is for sure. And the good thing is that like you can change that game really quickly. I mean, really quickly. And then they'll actually love it because they'll notice your effort. And people do notice that. They understand, like, maybe right away in the first 10 seconds, you are definitely not like them. But all of a sudden you start mirroring, you start echoing, you start modifying your behavior and your communication. They're going to kind of unconsciously know and recognize, like, you're trying to get on my same page, and it's helpful. And usually, you're selling value, you're selling trust, and you're building those things in the rapport as well, which just makes for a better patient experience as a whole. No doubt. Let's hone in on the, how's that? Okay, so let's start to talk about personal growth with disc, right? So there's a lot of orthodontists out there who are just like reading, watching, listening. I'm thinking of like the younger you, and I mean, you're still an absolute learning crazy person, just like me. Of like
lifelong student.
Yeah, exactly. Like we're taking notes, and there's smoke coming out of our pens. But I know there's a lot of people like that. So talk about like what's the personal side of that, the personal growth side of human behavior, communication, disc, that piece, and how has disc kind of helped you in that area?
Well, I think every single person wants what they want, mm-hmm. right? They want to feel understood. They want to be understood. And for people close to them, they want to understand them too.
Yeah.
Right. And I think disc is a really critical part of that, right? It has, for me, really enhanced how I communicate with people and how I perceive other people. So in personal life and professional life, mm-hmm. with my team, with my family, whatever, right? I take what I've learned from disc to better understand my children, my team, right? My friends. Yep. So it really helps to reduce frustration when I'm not seeing eye to eye with somebody, for sure. Or they're not seeing eye to eye with me, whatever, right? I'm saying, no, I think to myself, no, this isn't like tension. This is misunderstanding.
Yeah.
Okay, I need to understand their disc, right?
I mean, that's huge right there. This isn't tension, this is misunderstanding.
Yeah.
That's a key aspect. Because, 7, 8 out of 10 times, that's exactly what it is. It's just miscommunication, misunderstanding. It's not like I hate you, you hate me. That's usually not the case. But you said something there. You said how you provide information and communicate like externally, like you given, and then also how you take it in, receive it.
Yeah.
Those are two different things. Those are black and white, different scenarios there. So let's hit on that a little bit, because that's a cool one. So it's basically what verbal things or nonverbal are coming out of my body and my mouth. What am I saying, essentially? And then how am I processing what is said to me?
Yeah. So, the way we use disc in communication can go so deep, right? And, And you just nailed some of that complexity. So, I'm very aware of who I am. Mm-hmm. I'm very aware of who other people are through my understanding of disc. I'm very aware of how they're going to perceive me and how I'm going to come across, right? And vice versa. So, for example, if I'm having a conversation and I'm like, oh, my D is real strong here, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because what we haven't talked about, and that you'll get to as you learn and you dive deeper into DISC, is perceived self, right?
Oh, yeah. The 3 graphs.
Yeah. Okay. So the three areas of DISC are?
Yeah. So the mask, the core, and the mirror. Right. So your mask is going to be like your public self. And it's basically like, what behavior do I think my environment expects of me? That's your mask. Usually what you show at work. Okay. And then your core is like how you respond under pressure and in crisis. Okay. So think like unfiltered.
Your
right?
true self.
Yeah. And then your mirror is like your self-perception. What you think about you when you're alone standing in front of the mirror. And your biggest potential for change is the mask. And here's why, because the mask is what you think your environment expects of you. So if you can change your beliefs of what you think your environment expects of you, then you can easily modify your behavior for that. Right. But all of this, the key to all of it, and you're saying it, is self-awareness.
Absolutely. So under stress though, Desi, which a lot of times, a busy orthodontic practice can be very stressful.
For sure.
You got a lot of demands from your team. You got a lot of demands from your patient, right? The business demands a lot of you on the backside.
Absolutely.
And so it is during stressful situations, it's more likely that your true self, your core DISC profile is going to show itself, right? Where I'm not modifying myself to be best for other people. I'm just truly being who I am, right?
Yep.
And so when you're aware of these things, right? When I'm stressed out or whatnot, there's a lot going on that day. I might be extra fast because that's my natural, right?
Yep.
Very fast paced. I might be direct to the point and give me the results. That doesn't work. D's are 3% of the population.
Yeah.
So meaning that doesn't work for 97% of the population.
That's kind of a big number.
And nearly 100% of your team. So if we know we have stressful days, right? You can't get away from that. You're going to have to, and you're mindful of these things, then you can say, all right. And I've said this, right? I'm not doing a great job altering my DISC to best lead you or best communicate. I understand. I'm very direct and to the point right now. Please be, forgiving of that. I'm just trying to get through whatever we got to get through, right? Maybe you say something like that. Again, I'm a D, so I'm going to just directly communicate that that's happening, right? I'm not going to beat around the bush, but that's my personality. Or, hey, I don't know how to better word this. I know this isn't coming out the right way, right? And so anyways, no matter what your DISC is or your personality type is, when you're aware of it, you can have conversation around it. So even if you don't nail it the best way possible, at least you and your team can have conversation around it.
Absolutely. And you hit on something there. You're saying your natural self, right? So there's really 2 types there. There's natural and adaptive states. Okay, so you want to be able to balance these things, because if you're in an adaptive state, which is basically your mask, like we were talking about, for a long period of time, it's incredibly stressful and super high effort. And like eventually that's where you'll start to see burnout, essentially, from different people in your practice. So that's where even when you're building a team, and this is why I want to hit on this, like you need to know their DISCs, because if you put a super high S personality in an incredibly fast-paced environment that deals with a ton of details, that is not natural to them, which means they're going to be in an adaptive state for a long period of time. Like there's potential burnout there. Right now, can we do that well for a long time? Yes, if we know we're doing it and we're really intentional about how we balance that.
So what you just said brings me to hiring.
Yeah.
Because if you have, if you are a fast-paced practice, you're going to be mindful of, okay, what kind of personality does this person have? Because if, like you said, if they're an S, they're really probably going to struggle long-term in a very fast-paced environment, or at least be mindful in the role, right, that they're going to go into. I think that's a really great, we could have a whole conversation on hiring with DISC in mind.
I would say the role is probably most important, because it's the task and people that they'll be doing during all day, every day. We have an assessment called the benchmark and interview assessment. So what you do is you benchmark a certain role, like a high performer, like whoever, like who's your perfect TC, or literally pick any role in your practice, right? And then we benchmark them on a disc. Then we kind of keep that in the file 8. And then when you're going to interview someone, we give them a disc and then we overlay them and say, what is the compare and contrast to this? And it even spits out specific questions to ask them in that interview process. But and that's an in-depth assessment there, and that'll make sure that you're hiring the right person for the job in comparison to people that are in your practice that are already doing it really well. But I think at a surface level and a basic level, if you're not paying attention to at least the disc versus the role, then you're missing a mark, and you're probably disc is going to be the answer to why so-and-so didn't work out, or why they burnt out, or why they came to you and asked for this or wanted that. The disc is probably either the problem or the solution there, of either you misaligned the disc to the role, or you just didn't even think of it.
And none of this is like, always the case or never the case, right?
No.
Like, because there's still individuality no matter what your disc are. We're the same exact disc profile, right? DC Challenger, yet we're very different, right?
For sure.
So keep that in mind. But where was I going with that? Hold on. Oh, okay. So what we found is in our practice right now, we have found that certain discs really excel in different positions in the practice.
Yeah.
So we found right now SCs or CS, so it doesn't matter the order right now, but SC personalities make very good clinical assistants. They're detail oriented. They're like systemized, right? Mm-hmm. That's very important in the clinic.
Yeah.
To follow like certain, order of an appointment, check certain details, and really make sure we're detail oriented.
Both of those letters,
S and C together.
Both of those letters. And here's why I think that's where, and I got a feeling that that's industry wide.
That's why I'm sharing this.
Because, and I'm literally thinking about this on the spot, thinking about all of the things that they need to take care of, right? It needs to be clean. They need to have patient care. So there's a lot of tasks there, but there's also a person there. And that's the combo of an S and a C, or a C and an S. Yep. Is I got to do all these things, and I got to do them right.
And I got to do them in order.
C personality.
Yep.
But I'm doing them with a person, right? That patient in the chair, and I need to be able to relate. I need to be able to modify I need to build a relationship. And that's that CS, SC. Yep. That's a really, I think we're on to something there industry wide. And I'll tell you this, I actually, over 1,000 of these assessments now, we have not found a trend like that in any industry. And I have an inclination that might be an initial one because of that unique combo. And the role is very specific role, right? Like that's what they do, right? And that's how they do it. And I think that's going to be interesting to look.
So in our practice, SC make great assistants.
Yeah.
Managers or leaders, right? Or leaders. DIs. Mm-hmm. DIs make great leaders in our practice. TCs, we got a couple really great TCs. I would say just based on the numbers, CD.
Oh yeah,
CD.
On your numbers.
I don't know.
Yeah,
that was a little harder. There's the number of people we have to analyze the data is smaller because there's 2 TCs.
Usually the best salesperson is like an ID.
Okay.
But I'm going to take that as a massive compliment, because I would always say you can train any letter to be a really great leader or a really great salesperson, right?
And our 2 TCs are CD and IS.
And IS.
So
totally
and both
different.
of them very high performers. So those are trends we've seen in our office.
Yeah, which are I think are take note of. It would almost like, if you're a practice owner out there, if you're an orthodontist, like just go through the different roles and go, you think they're fast paced or steady paced? Do they focus on tasks? Do they focus on people? Right? And you can get a pretty good read really quick of like, oh, I tend to hire a lot of CS personalities, or I tend to hire a lot of D personalities, because I know a common challenge is definitely, and this happens in all industries, is that like, your early on practice owner or business owner will hire people like them because they like what they see and hear, because it reminds them of them. And before you know it, you're like, I didn't need that. I don't need more of me, right? I need people who are totally different than me and are doing different roles than me. in that scenario. So that's something to always watch out for. But DISC is a good way you'll recognize yourself and you'll like it. Just natural human behavior and psychology, right? So be cognizant of like, I'm a high D personality, but I totally understand the need for good C personalities in an organization and how important they are, even though they might completely frustrate me often, you know? And I know exactly how important that I personality is to team morale and enthusiasm, right? And culture and all those types of things. And then we got to have our S personalities to follow through and actually get something done, you know? And I have a really cool training called The Right People in the Right Boat. And it's like the George Washington the Revolution, and it pulls people out of the boat and then puts them back in and explains like what'll be different, and like how, you know, George Washington was a D personality, and then you got the people, you know, rowing the boat, and the rudder is a C personality, and it's like, oh, let's remove that person. Oh, the boat just goes in a circle, but confidently in a circle, and we're gonna win.
That's funny.
And it's like, think about that. If like you need all four of these personalities to build a really good team. They all have strengths. They all have dark sides for sure and weaknesses, but it takes the village, right? It takes the village of the DISC to build a really good, strong team. For sure. So let's go with this route. Cause I wanted to hit on, you know, kind of my journey with personal growth and that. So when I first started doing DISC, I was a teacher. So I was a special education teacher for 10 years, and I was doing all of this stuff before I even knew the word DISC. And what I was doing is I was co-teaching in every different classroom. So like 7 hours during the day in high school, I was teaching with a different teacher all 7 hours, which is like, and I finally was like, is anyone else doing this? Nope, you're the only one. And I was like, okay, why am I able to do that? And before you know it, was like, I can just blend. Like I'm good at going in and going, this is your domain, right? But I'll find my way in there. And then it was like, okay, this thing, like I have this talent and skill, but I'm not sure what it is. And then it was like, I saw DISC with John Maxwell, right, who we're certified through. And I was just like, that's it. That's the thing that I was doing all along. And it was just like, I can finally say what it was that I was doing. Like I was adapting well.
Yeah, like you were recognizing DISC patterns before you knew what it was.
Exactly. And it was really, I think what it was is all of my training in special education and how like I have to learn how to teach the same concept 5 different ways for 5 different learning styles and different disabilities. So the way I learned that, when I finally put DISC to it, it was like, oh my gosh, there it is. And then it was like, oh, that's me. Because honestly, by the time I started looking, the hardest part for me was me. It was the first part, which is who am I? Because I was just so used to just, you know, chameleon blending into what was around me. And it was like, who am I naturally, actually? Like if I were left to my own accord, who would I be? Because it was all about serving the kids and making sure I communicate well with the other teachers and all this. Like I was the least important thing there, right? But I knew how to adapt well, right? I knew how to change. I knew how to modify. I knew how to augment, and I knew how to do conflict better, you know, but attaching that was like, oh my gosh, that's what it is.
Desi, all the times that we've talked about, you know, DISC and previous careers and how you got here, I never knew that.
Yeah, I wanted to share that story. And I think that's honestly the first time I really articulated that, of how that built. So then it was like, I mean, it was like pouring gasoline on fire when I finally got the training and dove in and was like, so this is like for all humans. Like not just me. And then it was like, you know, and I think a lot of the orthodontists out there are like, oh, this could really help my practice. Like this could really help your life. Like this helps you with at home, your friends, your kids. Like we have student success reports. We've gone into schools and given, entire high school, these reports to help the teachers. I mean, it helps the parents at home, all these different types of things. I mean, I guarantee you're already having conversations about the littles of like, oh, that's that S person. Oh, there's that D personality. And they're like, and you know, mine are 4 and 6. You know, how old are yours?
We have a 3-year-old. Well, we have a newborn, 8 weeks.
Oh boy.
So he's pretty calm so far. I think he's going to be an S.
It's early on at this point.
I think he's going to be an S. He's chill, baby. And then we have Everly. She's 3.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure she's going to be a D like mom. And then Oliver, again, just super sweet people, very empathetic. Like he already at his age, he's 7 years old. very empathetic, and mindful of, the people around him and everything. And I think he's going to be an S as well.
Yeah.
And honestly, Desi, dare I say my favorite personality?
Yeah, sure. Let's talk about that. Cause I bet you people will be very surprised at like who my best friends are.
Who are your best friends? I'll let you go first.
My best friends are I personalities.
You like the eyes?
Which is crazy, right? Because it's so different for me.
You're going to talk your ear off and you're just going to be okay with it.
For sure. Because, what do I do every day?
Yeah.
Because I talk every day and I'm the one that usually people are looking at. Right? When I'm hanging out with the I personality, I can just sit back
and be you.
And know that like we're probably not going to talk a ton of business.
Yeah.
And totally fine with that because I just talk business all day long. So it's just like hobbies and encouraging. Because maybe by the end of the day, I'm tired.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't want to be serious anymore. And so some of my best friends are IS personalities or like I personalities or ID personalities, which is really interesting.
Well, I'm thinking of some of my closest friends, and a lot of them are DIs, right? They're strong like me, but strong personality, but they have that social side too, where I can sit back. I do like to do that too, like sit back and you can do the entertaining, right?
Yep.
But S's are my favorite people, and the reason why are my favorite personality, and the reason why is they're just so calm. They add the calm to my crazy. So I honestly don't think that you would find a pattern between DISC and who their favorite people are, because that's where our individuality
for sure
really comes into play. Like you just said, your favorite's an I, my favorite's an S, right? Very different.
Yeah. Just your whole situation and scenario comes into play there, which is like 100 different variables that makes you, you're seeking out different things. Like I always say, even with like relationships and marriage and even ministry, like DISC is always unique because opposites attract.
Yeah.
Right. And you might have like a super high D personality who's a pastor, but they really love people and they're super passionate. So they might operate like an S a lot because they love that thing somewhere that's so passionate about it. Mm-hmm. Right. So, no matter what DISC you are, like you can augment, modify, adapt to what's needed around you, right? The key is self-awareness is a superpower. No doubt about it. Like there's no one DISC that's better than the other, because questions asked me all the time. So I should be more like this. And I'm like, no.
It's like paint colors. We all have preference of paint colors. There's not one paint color better than the other. It's just another color, right?
Oh, you just probably brought up like the great debate.
Uh-oh.
There's like a couple out there arguing about paint colors, right?
That's hilarious. Well, we were talking about the kids, right? And so like I said, I think I've identified that Oliver's my son's an S, right? Yeah. So how do I adapt my parenting to their personality, right?
Great question.
And so with Oliver, my S, right? I can't be quick. Like, Oliver, today we're not doing it that way. We're doing it this way.
Yeah.
Right. That will throw him off. Yep. He's got, it just doesn't work for him. Mm-hmm. So instead it's like, okay, Oliver, every day, after school, this is what we're going to do. This is the expectation. Mm-hmm. Do you like this idea? Right. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
My daughter, I could be like, we're switching your room and your bed tomorrow. And she wouldn't care. Right. She's a D.
She's like, how about right now?
I mean, this poor girl in 3 years of life has had 3 different bedrooms, like 4 different beds because of home remodels and all of this thing. The very first night I took her from a crib to a bed to a different room, she slept fine all night long. Our son, we would have had to prep, right? Because of his personality, right? And if you know DISC and you understand what S means, you'll know, okay, I can't make quick change. Yeah. I got to give him time to warm up, kind of slow the pace down a little bit. We would approach that very differently.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so true. That really starts to take mold in those formative years. But I always say, like, and this kind of applies to all human behavior and communication, you can look at DISC 2 different ways. You can look at it like over the long horizon, because like we've known each other for years. And now over all of my experiences and observations, you're a blank personality, fill in the blank. Or you're a patient, or I just met you and this is the read I'm getting. DISC also works then, because maybe you're D personality, but you're totally like having the time of your life, and I'm getting the vibes of an I personality. I can deal with that I personality right then and there. Right. So it's always like, oh, well, don't I need to know them? Do I get to see this? It's like, no, you read what you know over time or what you're currently observing. And the same thing goes for, I mean, whether it's a patient, parent, team member, friend, the kid, it doesn't matter. Right. And like even, son or daughter like ours, I'm finding even a difference in my oldest at home and at school. Way more confident and deep personality at home, way less at school. And that's interesting because then I have to have different conversations and I have to mine out more questions from her and ask her more about it. Like, hey, what? They didn't let you use the sled. Why didn't you say something?
Yeah, because her natural self is a confident, deep personality. Sure. And so through time, you hope she can be her confident self at school too.
Yeah,
because that's her natural self.
There, I don't think I hit on this, but I was talking about the graphs, right? So you'll have 3 different graphs. And oftentimes they'll be slightly different, maybe totally different, or all the same. What you want eventually is very close to the same thing in all 3 graphs. And the reason is, and all that means is that what you think your environment expects of you, how you respond under pressure, and how you feel about yourself are the same.
Well, that's what this authenticity that, is the buzzword,
Yep.
For a lot of people, that's really what that means is being
Absolutely.
your authentic self,
Mm-hmm.
no matter the circumstance. But you gotta work with people. You don't live in a bubble, so you also have to adapt. So, but there is a way to be authentic, but yet still adapt in communication.
Absolutely, because you're not changing who you are.
Yeah,
you are just serving whoever it is that you're talking to well.
Then
you're gonna go right back to who you are. Like it's not like it feels like I'm changing who I am.
You're not it's how you get away from being self-serving and being servant to other people.
Absolutely. And that's really what it comes down. Like you're not the most important person in the conversation. Mm-hmm. Sorry. Right. It's just like I would tell a leader, hey, it's probably your fault.
Yeah.
Whatever the problem is you're facing in leadership, it's probably your fault because you're the leader.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really good way to look at it. And a couple cool ways to apply it to the family setting, to your home setting, to your friends, to your kids. It's really fun. And it's a way that I love to give perspective on it of like all humans. But a lot of times you got to like really spell it out and be like, no, I mean with your family also, with your friends also, like this works in life. And I mean, honestly, one of my favorite things, and this is kind of would be like here's what to go do with this, is like just put that filter in your head and just be like, ooh, DISC. Ooh, what the person behind the counter? Oh, that salesperson. Oh, my husband, my wife, my friend, my brother, my uncle. And just start going, what does that mean? What does this mean?
I think about it all the time. So if somebody gives me a response, I'll say, oh, I didn't like that. I'm either thinking to myself, are they having a bad day? Or maybe it's just their disc, right?
What was the one on the road the other day? It was, as I'm sitting in traffic.
Okay. I was in traffic and I messaged you, Desi, and I said, I wonder if there is statistics to show that in the right lane, there is a different disc, people that are more a certain disc than in the left lane.
It's got to be S personality.
S in the right, they're just smooth, steady, going with the flow. D's in the left. Like, I got to get by. And
going fast, got a place to go.
So when you start learning these things, I'll tell you, you're going to think about it in a whole lot of different scenarios.
The I personality is probably the one just weaving it out.
Waving at the neighbors.
Having some deep conversation on the phone.
Jamming to the music. I'm good. I'm jamming to the music.
And that's where you can apply it to all these different scenarios and just go, you'll start to just understand human behavior. Mm-hmm. And that is just what has intrigued me this entire time. And the reason why I've dove into this so deep is just because human behavior in general is just so intriguing. And then to be able to now use that to help serve people more powerfully, get them help them solve problems, right? Whether it be a patient or a leader, it doesn't matter. Just helping people solve those problems. It's been a really fun journey. And helping, but let's end with this. So what is, and this is how I always like to end it, because I think I have something today, but it's going to be dependent on what you say. What is the advice that you would give younger Dr. Wax when you like, maybe you're just fresh cutting the teeth right out of college. I'm going to go do a thing. What would you tell her now?
I wouldn't give her any advice.
Oh my gosh. Ladies and gentlemen, a challenger DC personality right there.
No. Let me explain. I wouldn't give her any advice because I know young me and I was going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
I was going to figure it out. Right. And I wouldn't want anything to scare me away from that because it was a hard road and I knew it'd be a hard road. But for a DC challenger, which is my personality, I need those challenges to figure out, right? Yeah. But if I were to give myself advice, it would be to understand the challenges ahead. You don't have to have the answers. You don't have to have the answers. You're going to find it. And my suggestion to you, little Nicole, is to talk to as many people as possible. Ask all the questions. Don't ever shy away from asking questions and sitting down with people. People want to help you. They're going to feel good to help you. You're not burdening them. I still have that in the back of my mind when I need help. I'm like, I don't want to burden anyone. Everyone's busy, right? You're not going to burden them. So ask the questions, understand the problems, the challenges that are going to come, right? Don't be so blinded by your goal and getting there that you're ignoring things that are going to be hard or get in the way. You need to understand that and then ask lots of questions and be a lifelong learner.
Yeah, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Seek wise counsel. And I think there's I don't think it's a myth, but it's like, as you know, small business owners or just beginning entrepreneurs, like I feel like, and I think I thought this too, is like, it's like me versus everyone. And it's like, actually, it's the opposite. No one really wants you to just fail, right? Like, unless they are they're my next door competitor doing exactly what I do. And even then, it's like, even like if we're competing and we win and the other one goes out of business, we're not really like, I won, that's awesome. It's more like, oh, why couldn't we both win?
I think that we're always our worst enemy. Yeah. Always, right? And for somebody who may not have like uber confidence, right, in yourself, just know that you're the only thing that can get in your way. Yeah. And I know it might sound cliche, but if you say you can, you can. Yep. And if you say you can't, you can't. And no one else can tell you if you can or can't. And if they are telling you, it doesn't matter. Yeah. Only you can decide what you can and cannot do and achieve.
We say it all the time. We say, we're going to implement some new things. And you got two options. You can either put the effort towards proving it right or put the effort towards proving it wrong.
Ooh, I like that.
It would help you and serve you much better if you put the effort towards, proving it right. So that's so good. And I had to kind of learn that the hard way as I kind of went it alone. And then it was like, hey, I found a mentor who has gone further than me, faster than me, and done all the things and doesn't need anything from me to then just be like, I'm dealing with this. Should I feel like this? I feel like I don't have any friends. This is harder than I thought. And they're like, yep, yeah. And you're just like, wow, you've already been through it. And it's so good to get that counsel. But sometimes we're like, I'm going to steer the boat all by myself. We're going to win, because most of it are very determined in that way. But so I love that. So mine, I think I would say you better have really, really strong faith because you're going to get dumped on hard. And this is going to be much harder than you think. So are you sure? Now, I also know myself,
I'm thinking.
And then I would say, yes, I'm sure, probably without a half second of thought into it, right? Because even though D's might make really quick decisions, in no way does that mean that they're correct.
Yeah, but you know what, Desi? D's are 3% of the population, so most of the people listening to this would not think the same way.
Correct, yeah.
They're going to think, oh gosh, okay, I'm not doing this because that sounds real scary.
Yeah.
Right? So have the confidence that you can get through that
for sure
with the faith that you're talking about.
And I mean, obviously, and many of you know my backstory, but I mean, I was a teacher for 10 years. My dad passed away out of the blue. He was my rock. He was my everything and my role model. And after that, I left teaching having no clue what I was going to go do. Even then, so that was 7 years ago. Now, I mean, if you had told me I'd be working in the orthodontic field, I'm like, doing what? am I teaching their kids math? Like, or what is it, you know? But that's what I mean by like, you're going to go on a journey and it's not all going to be fun and it's not all going to be easy. But it will be worth it. So you're going to want to make sure that you're pretty heavily rooted and faithful, in that journey, and that, you know, you don't just need to see good things, but you can also appreciate the bad. Like, cause with no bad, there's no good. With no dark, there's no light.
Yeah.
And like, I definitely learned that.
I think challenges motivate us more than successes.
For sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is a good thing because there's going to be challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. But like you said, if you had confidence in yourself and you hold your faith in the right things, you'll get there. And then you better apply DISC to all of those scenarios.
True.
Team, thank you so much for joining us today. DISC in everything, orthodontics and personal growth, with family, with all of the above. Thanks so much, Dr. Wax. It's been a powerful conversation, and we're definitely going to have to do this again.
Thank you. I always enjoy our conversations, Desi.
All right, team, we're out.